The day had not fully awakened when Augusto opened his eyes. The house was silent, lit only by the faint light slipping through the cracks of the window. At 72 years old, he had learned to appreciate this moment of dawn, when the world seems suspended and life takes a deep breath before beginning. He remained lying down for a few seconds, feeling the weight of his body, the slight stiffness in his joints, and the cold floor waiting for him. But unlike many who saw the morning as a battle, Augusto saw it as an invitation. He placed his feet on the ground slowly, supported himself gently, breathed in. There was no rush, no pressure. There was only a thought he repeated every morning: "I'm grateful for one more day, and today I will honor it." He walked to the window, opened the curtains, and let the golden sunrise fill the room. The cool breeze touched his face. Augusto closed his eyes for a moment. He felt the air enter, hold, leave, as if aligning his mind for what was to come. To many, he was just an elderly man starting his day, but to Augusto, this was his first Stoic act. Breathe, give thanks, live with intention. After a few moments, he stepped away from the window and began his morning ritual. A gentle stretch, moving his arms, rotating his neck, flexing his body with calm precision. His movements were not wide, nor fast. They were intentional. To Augusto, each gesture was a reminder that the body, though aged, was still a powerful tool. The muscles might no longer be as firm, but they still responded. The joints might complain, but they still supported him. As he stretched, he murmured to himself, "Time has shaped me, but it has not broken me." When he finished, he walked through the house with steady, unhurried steps, awakening the body. The morning light crossed the hallway, painting the floor with gold, and for a moment Augusto smiled, a small, quiet smile born when the heart finds peace in simplicity. Shortly after, he sat at the kitchen table and picked up his old notebook with its worn cover and yellowed pages. He wrote in it every day. Not long paragraphs, not elaborate stories, just short ideas, reminders for his own soul. That morning he wrote, "I cannot control the world, but I can control my next step." And he closed the notebook gently. That was how he prepared his mind, with simplicity, discipline, and truth. After closing his notebook, Augusto stood up slowly and made his way toward the kitchen counter. He filled a glass with water and drank it in small, deliberate sips. Hydration was not just a habit for him, it was a ritual of respect toward his own body. He prepared a simple breakfast, a piece of fruit, a slice of whole bread, and an egg. Nothing fancy, nothing excessive. Narrator. For the Stoics, caring for the body is not vanity, it is duty. A strong body sustains a strong mind. Once he finished eating, Augusto stepped outside onto the porch. The morning air was still crisp, and the world around him quietly waking up. Birds sang high in the trees, and the sky, still painted in shades of orange and pink, seemed to welcome him. He took a few steps forward, then began his walk along the familiar path near his house. It wasn't a long walk, but it was meaningful. Each step was a reminder that movement was life. His pace was steady, his breathing calm, his posture upright. But today, a mild ache pulsed in his knee. Augusto slowed down, but didn't stop. He placed a hand briefly on his leg, breathed deeply, and continued. Narrator. At his age, pain was not an enemy. It was a companion. A reminder that the body had lived, worked, carried, and endured. The Stoic path was not to deny pain, but to walk with it. He whispered to himself, "A little discomfort is not defeat." As he kept walking, memories began to drift into his mind. He remembered the years of hard work, raising a family, the challenges, the joys, the losses. He remembered how, after retirement, he felt lost, like a boat without wind. But now things were different. He had purpose again, not in grand achievements, but in the simple act of living with discipline, presence, and acceptance. When Augusto reached the end of the path, he stopped, turned around, and allowed himself a moment to admire the morning light spreading across the landscape. Life is still beautiful, he thought. Augusto returned home with slow, thoughtful steps. As he reached the front door, he paused for a moment, feeling the warmth of his skin after the short walk. It wasn't the kind of warmth from intense exercise. It was the warmth of life flowing, of circulation awakening, of a body still fighting to stay active. Inside, he placed the keys on the small wooden table by the entrance, the same table he had owned for decades. Its surface held marks and scratches that told stories of a long life lived with purpose. He moved to his favorite armchair, a soft, old seat near the window, where sunlight settled gently during the morning. He sat down carefully, letting his body sink into the familiar cushions. From the small bookshelf beside him, he pulled out a thin book. The cover was simple, the pages worn. It was a collection of Stoic reflections, short phrases, ideas, and teachings that he revisited often. He opened the book randomly. One sentence caught his eye. "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Augusto let the words settle inside him. Narrator. For him, these weren't just phrases. They were anchors, reminders that even in old age, when the world often feels uncontrollable, the mind remains a place of freedom. He closed the book and placed it on his lap, gently running his fingers across the cover. The silence of the room wrapped around him, calm and familiar. He reflected on how much time he used to waste worrying about things he couldn't control, the opinions of others, the past, the uncertainty of the future. Now with age he understood something precious. Peace is not given, peace is practiced. He leaned back and allowed his gaze to drift across the room, the sunlight on the wall, the slight movement of the curtains, the distant sound of a neighbor starting a car. Life in all its simplicity felt enough. After a few minutes of quiet reflection, he reached for the notebook again, not to write a new thought, but to reread the ones from previous weeks. Notes about acceptance, notes about gratitude. Notes about courage. Many were written on days when he struggled, when the body felt heavier, when loneliness tried to settle in. But each note stood as a reminder. He had survived every difficult day before this one. He smiled softly and whispered, "I am still here, and I am still choosing to live." After spending some time reading his old notes, Augusto closed the notebook gently and set it aside. He stood up slowly, feeling a slight pressure in his lower back, a familiar sensation that came and went with the years. Instead of frowning or complaining, he breathed deeply. Narrator. Augusto had learned what many take a lifetime to understand. Discomfort isn't a punishment, it's a message. A reminder that the body changes, but the spirit does not have to fade. He walked toward the kitchen, his steps steady but measured. He filled a kettle with water and placed it on the stove. Soon the soft sound of boiling filled the house, a quiet, comforting reminder of routine and warmth. As he prepared a cup of herbal tea, he felt the ache in his knee return. This time, a little sharper, a little more persistent. He stopped for a moment, placed his hand on the counter, allowed himself to breathe through the discomfort, and then he whispered a simple truth he had repeated throughout the years. Pain is not the enemy. Fear is. Once the tea was ready, he carried the cup to the small table by the window. He sat down carefully, placing the warm mug between his hands and letting the heat soothe his fingers. Outside, he watched the wind move through the trees. The leaves swayed gently, almost dancing. The world out there was in motion, just as he was. Narrator. Growing older had not stolen his ability to live, it had deepened it. When youth fades, awareness grows, and with awareness comes strength. As he sipped his tea, memories of the past washed over him, not in a painful way, more like waves arriving softly on the shore. He remembered the years of working tirelessly, raising his children, supporting his family. He remembered the joy of celebrations, the weight of losses, and the quiet resilience that carried him through countless challenges. And now, here he was, older, slower, but wiser, and more present than ever. Suddenly a thought crossed his mind, a thought that made him straighten his back and breathe a little deeper. This stage of life is not an ending, it is a refinement. He looked at his hands, marked with lines of time, and felt grateful. Not nostalgic, not sad, grateful. Because every wrinkle, every ache, every quiet morning was proof of a life truly lived. Finished with his tea, Augusto stood up once more. The pain in his knee was still there, but it no longer dictated his day. It was simply another part of him, something to accept, not something to fear. He walked toward the door again, preparing for his second small walk of the morning. A walk not meant to exercise the body, but to honor it. As Augusto stepped outside for his second walk of the morning, the sun had already risen higher, casting soft, warm tones over the quiet neighborhood. The streets were calm, touched only by the distant sound of a dog barking and the rustling of leaves dancing with the breeze. This time he didn't walk far, just enough to feel the air on his face and the world moving gently around him. Narrator. Some people believe that strength comes only from big gestures, long workouts, intense challenges, dramatic transformations. But Augusto had learned a quieter truth. Real strength lives in consistency, in the small steps you choose to take every day. When he returned home, he felt a small sense of accomplishment. Not a triumphant victory, but something quieter, deeper, and far more real. Inside he approached his plant, the one he had cared for over the last year. A simple plant, nothing impressive. But for Augusto, it symbolized growth at its own pace. He touched the leaves gently, noticing a new sprout. He smiled. A tiny victory, a reminder of life's quiet progress. He moved to the living room and sat down once again, this time taking a deeper breath, letting it fill his chest completely. He looked around, the sunlight settling on old books, the chair he had repaired himself, the photographs on the wall, memories preserved in frames. Everything around him told a story, his story. Narrator. In younger years, Augusto used to chase achievements, promotions, goals, responsibilities. But now in this new chapter, the victories were different, smaller perhaps, but purer too. He stood up again and walked to the mirror in the hallway, not out of vanity, but out of gratitude. He looked at his reflection, the lines on his forehead, the silver of his beard, the softness in his eyes. He whispered, "You've lived, you've endured, and you are still standing." He placed a hand on his chest, feeling the rhythm of his heart, steady, patient, loyal. In that moment he understood something profound. Strength isn't measured by youth. Strength is measured by persistence, by the courage to wake up each day and keep going. He returned to the window and watched a few children playing outside. Their laughter filled the air with a warmth that reached him deeply. But instead of feeling old or distant from their energy, Augusto felt connected. He felt part of the same world, different seasons, same life. He closed his eyes again and took another breath, anchoring himself in the present moment. Narrator. Stoicism had taught Augusto that happiness is not found in what we chase, but in what we accept. In gratitude, in awareness, in discipline, in the quiet victories of today. And as he stood there watching the world and feeling his body grounded to the floor beneath him, he realized, today was already a good day, a day he had shaped with intention, a day he had honored. The afternoon arrived slowly, painting the walls of Augusto's home with softer, deeper shades of gold. The house felt warmer now, not from the sun but from the quiet sense of purpose that filled each corner. Augusto moved toward his bedroom, where he kept a small wooden box on the nightstand. Inside it lay a collection of objects that held special meaning: an old watch, a family photograph, a medal from his working years, and a letter he once wrote to himself during a difficult time. He opened the box and picked up the letter, the ink slightly faded but still readable. He unfolded it carefully as if opening a part of his own soul. The letter began, "If you ever feel lost, remember this. Your value does not fade with time. Your purpose does not disappear with age." Augusto read the words slowly, letting them sink deep into his heart. Narrator: Some memories stay to remind us of who we were, but others stay to remind us of who we still can be. He placed the letter back in the box and closed it with a soft tap. Then he walked to the living room and lowered himself into his armchair, the same one where his mornings began, and now where his reflections often ended. Outside, the day was transitioning into evening. Shadows grew longer, the wind calmed, and the world seemed to speak in whispers. As he watched the fading light, Augusto felt a deep sense of awareness, not of age, but of life itself. He whispered to himself, "I cannot change the time I've lost, but I can honor the time I have left." Those words hung in the air for a moment, steady and powerful. Narrator: In youth we rush, in adulthood we push, but in the later years of life, we finally learn the secret we chased for decades. The present moment is enough. Augusto closed his eyes and let his breathing become slow and intentional. He felt the weight of his body on the chair, the quiet rhythm of his chest, the peace settling gently into his bones. He wasn't trying to be strong anymore. He was strong, in the simplest, purest form of the word. When he opened his eyes again, the room was darker, but his spirit felt lighter. He stood up and walked toward the window one last time. The sky was now a deep blue, and the first evening star appeared quietly, shimmering above the rooftops. He gazed at it with calm eyes. Discipline, acceptance, gratitude. 3 words that had reshaped his life. 3 words that guided him through pain, loneliness, change, and now, through peace. Narrator, final message. Growing older is not losing strength, it is gaining clarity. Not every day will be easy, but every day can be meaningful. Move your body, protect your mind, accept what you cannot control, and honor the time you have, with courage, presence, and intention. As Augusto stepped back from the window, he felt his heart steady, his mind calm, and his spirit grounded. The day was ending, but his purpose was not. Fade out.